Answers about my personal life, part 2. That is going to be the topic of this episode of Chi Life. Okay, so there's already been a part 1, and it was quite a long one. I didn't know how long I was recording for, but I think it's like almost half an hour. So that's why I've divided it up into more than one edition, because there were quite a few questions that people sent in. The first one was all questions, well, I guess more personally about me, about how I grew up and how I got introduced to Qigong and things like that. This second one, it's questions that a lot of them, I guess, they're more trivia or hypothetical. I guess that they're still about me, but they're just sort of more general questions, I guess, that people ask. There's probably a few more serious ones about Qigong thrown in there as well. We'll see as I go through the list. So hopefully, maybe there'll be something interesting in this one as well. All right, I've got a little list here that I'll go through, and let's see how we go. All right, first question. What is the most unusual hobby you've ever tried? Well, what's unusual? I mean, different people will think different things are unusual. I'll go through a few things I've tried, which you might find unusual. I've tried painting ceramics. Some people that'd be unusual. For some people that would be very normal. One thing I used to do quite some time ago was make stop motion animation movies using Lego or using Barbie dolls and action figures, and actually went to quite a lot of effort with a few friends with some of these, and we made our own backdrops and made props and all sorts of things. And yeah, that might be unusual to a few people. Paragliding, that's one that I do now. That might be unusual to some people. It's quite fun. What else? Diving with sharks. I don't know if that's a hobby. It's something I tried once. That was unusual for me. I don't know. I've tried a few different things. Maybe some of those ones are unusual. Maybe they're all normal. Who knows? Let's see. What else do we have? If you could instantly become an expert in something, what would it be? I think probably, well, I mean, because there's so many things that would be amazing to be an expert in. I think for me, probably physics. Now, I have studied a bit of physics. At university, I studied a bit of physics because first, this is a question no one asked actually, but when I first went to university, I was studying engineering. That was the first thing I studied at university. And so as part of that, I studied quite a bit of physics, studied at high school as well. One, I just find it interesting. And I think physics is a way to get right at the essence of how the world works, how the universe works, which is something that I think Qigong also does. So there's real parallels. And they're not really necessarily separate from each other. They're just looking at different things and understanding them maybe in different ways or different parts of the same thing. And so I think, I have found Qigong fascinating and continue to find it fascinating. I find it, I discover and understand so much through it. I have found studying physics fascinating in the past. And that's helped me to discover and understand so much about how the universe works. And I think there's a lot more for me to understand from physics as well. And I think that would, well, as my previous study of physics has contributed to my understanding of Qigong, I think understanding a lot more would contribute even more. So physics, that's what I'm going with. What's my next one? What's the most memorable dream you've had? Goodness, I guess there's all sorts of possibilities. I'm going to go with 2 quite different ones. And look, and there'll be others as well. One is a type of dream that I used to have quite a lot when I was young. And I probably still have occasionally from time to time, not very often. It was mainly when I was younger. And it was a type of flying dream. And people who are into interpreting dreams, flying dreams often have particular meanings and stuff. I don't know if the type of flying dream I had was the normal type or not. But this type of flying dream I had was basically I'd be walking and I would gradually take longer and longer steps, and I would just glide for longer between each step until eventually I was just gliding for long distances and just essentially flying. But it was incrementally building up to that. And within these dreams, I would wonder, it's like, does no one else notice that I'm like essentially able to fly here? And yeah, was a memorable type of dream that I had a lot. And, I think within that, I don't know if it's a valuable insight or not, but certainly this idea that incrementally we can do amazing things. And I think that's a true principle. Whether we can necessarily glide and fly, maybe not. But in other senses, by just extending a little further, cumulatively that can turn into something amazing. Another type of dream that I won't go into the details of, but I can think of some specific ones, is types of dreams I've had which have essentially given me some profound insight about either something that is currently happening or even something that may happen in the future. Those have been interesting dreams as well. Some of them quite memorable. All right. Okay, if you had to live in a movie for a week, which movie would you choose? That's a hard one, because a lot of movies inherently are based around conflict and dealing with that conflict and resolving that conflict. And that's a good thing. That's what makes them interesting. That's why you make a movie or a story around them, because there's something to be resolved. And it makes for an interesting movie. I don't know that I don't really want to live a life of conflict though, even for a week. Yes, I deal with conflict. I face up to conflict. I address it, but I don't seek it out. I prefer not to have conflict if I can avoid it. So that maybe rules out a lot of movies, because that is an inherent part of storytelling. But maybe if I skew the question a little bit, maybe a movie universe, the sort of universe that a movie occurs in, that I'd like to live in for a week. I think Star Trek. The Star Trek universe would be a fascinating one to live in, because, inherent within Star Trek, yes, they have conflict, part of the storytelling, but it's just a helicopter going past. Hopefully that's not too loud for you. But inherently underneath, the whole ethos of the civilization, or the human civilization in Star Trek, is about peace and goodwill and discovery. That's a beautiful thing. And they're at a point where they have, already discovered so much of the universe, and they have tools to discover so much more. Fascinating. Wow, that would be amazing to discover and learn and experience so much. Kind of weird that almost all intelligent life happens to be humanoid in that universe. That's probably really unlikely, but anyway, I think that would be an interesting one to live in for a week. Okay. What do I have next? What's the best piece of advice you've ever received? Okay, so one thing, I don't know if it's advice. Well, it's kind of advice, but it's a perspective that I've heard or seen several times, and I've found it to be true, and I think it's a useful thing to keep in mind. It's that we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish within a year and greatly underestimate what we can accomplish within 10 years. And I think that perspective, and keeping that perspective in mind, can really help us to accomplish a lot more and understand the nature of accomplishment. Often there's a lot of hard work and groundwork, and things often shift slowly to begin with in the process of change. Whatever it is that we're looking to accomplish, there's a slow period, but incrementally things speed up. And so it starts slowly and it increases and it increases and it increases and it increases. And so those early stages can seem, often they can be frustrated and we don't feel like we're achieving much. And, and if that's the limit of our perspective, we can give up before we really achieve the great things. Whereas if we understand, hey, this is just part of the process, things are often slow to begin with, but cumulatively it adds up to some amazing stuff over time. We're more likely to stick with it and accomplish remarkable things. And this applies directly to Qigong, of course. Some people can have some amazing experiences straight away with their Qigong. Cool. For a lot of people, it does build more slowly. And obviously it's good, if there's enough to keep them interested, but some of the really remarkable stuff comes over time. Gong, work over time. Yeah, okay. What's the next one? If you could only eat one food for the rest of your life, what would it be? That's a tough one. And what do we mean by one food? If it's literally just one food, I might go with something like potatoes. There have been some people who have done some really interesting experiments where they've only eaten potatoes for a long period of time and they've managed to stay pretty healthy. So that's a good reason. And I do like potatoes. So that would be a good reason to eat that one. If we're being a bit more general, like more sort of a type of food, a category of food, I might go more with like fruit, all the different types of fruit. So many rich flavors. And again, you can live just on fruit in the right circumstances. And there's so many, beautiful different flavors and things within fruit. If we're talking more a cuisine, I think maybe Thai. I find Thai food really fresh, really tasty. I love all sorts of different foods, but like if I had to pick one, I think something like Thai food would be pretty good. All right, that's really a trivia one. I don't know if there's anything too insightful from that, but hey. Okay, if I could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be? So, no one really comes to mind. No one jumps to mind. I mean, I suppose there could be a range of people who could be interesting. I guess for me, I'm more interested in living in the present rather than having dinner with historical figures, although I'm sure there's things that you could learn from that. Just doesn't spring to mind. I guess my thought process isn't oriented in that way. I'm much more interested in having dinner with friends and family and people who I know now. That answer might be a bit disappointing, but that's the answer I have. Okay, what's the next one? Okay, if you could have a superpower for a day, what would it be? So many to choose from. Like, for example, just being able to fly, without any assistance, without any equipment, that could be cool. That would be a lot of fun. X-ray vision, that could be cool. I think, though, if it's only for a day, goodness, aircraft flying by us today. I might pause for just a moment in case that's too loud. Hopefully it'll be gone soon. All right. If I could only have something for a day, I guess I would like the effects of it to be enduring in some way. So I think a superpower that could be really cool and have an enduring effect would be the ability to read minds. Not from the perspective of trying to discover anyone's deep, dark secrets or anything like that, but to have an ability to really see and understand things from another person's perspective, and maybe a whole range of different people's perspective. I think, wow, how that would open my own perspective and contribute then in an ongoing way to a richer understanding, not just of how other people think, but of the world itself, to have the benefit of having, a glimpse of these different perspectives from different people. I think that would be amazing. And that would be something, with an enduring long-term effect and benefit. What's the most adventurous thing that I've ever done? Probably done quite a few adventurous things. I'll just pick one though. And that would be a over 20 hour, I don't remember exactly how long it was. It might have been over 24 hours, train ride through the middle of China with no seat. And this was some time ago. I mean, in the scheme of things, it's not that long ago, but it's some time ago, and China has developed remarkably over that time. And a lot of things have developed remarkably over that time. And so it was at a time when it wasn't easy to just get Google Translate on your phone. And going through the center of China in particular, there were very few people who spoke English. And yeah, there was no high-speed train on this particular route. There's a lot more high-speed trains that are a lot more comfortable now. And yeah, so I got a ticket. There were no seats available, so they sell tickets where you get no seat. And basically you just stand in the lowest class carriage, you stand in the aisles, or you squat down on the floor where there's a little bit of space. And there's all sorts of people doing that. At some points, if there is an empty seat, you might get an empty seat for a little while. And boy, you see all sorts of things in that environment. And yeah, with very little ability to communicate to the people around me. And I think that was quite adventurous. I've done other more mundane things, jump out of planes, parachuting and things like that. But yeah, that was pretty adventurous, I think. Let's see. If you could teleport anywhere in the world right now, where would you go? Again, nowhere really springs to mind. I guess for the most part, I'm happy to enjoy the journey, to go through the process of getting somewhere and so on. Maybe the exception with that would be, well, sometimes if I'm flying somewhere, look, teaching Qigong is maybe not as lucrative. Well, it's probably just as lucrative as you think it is. It's not super lucrative, right? So if I'm flying places, I'm quite tall. It's hard to tell from the videos, but I'm 6'4". I'm quite large. It's not that comfortable in economy. And yeah, at this stage, I don't have the money to fly business class very often. I have once or twice flown business class, which is so much more comfortable. But yeah, so I fly economy. It's very cramped, and for a long flight, not that pleasant. So probably just wherever, if I am traveling, wherever I want to go next, that would be amazing to just be able to teleport there. That would be awesome. But in terms of getting to different other specific places, I mean, you could be like, teleport inside a bank vault or something. I don't know. I'm quite happy just having the journey, having the process on the way. But yeah, escaping the discomfort of economy class on planes, I could go for that. That would be good. All right, what do we have? What changes would I like to see in this world? I won't go as cliched as world peace, because like sometimes there's good things that come out of conflict. Conflict is part of life, and so it's natural that we will continue to have conflict of some sort within our personal lives and so on, But I think an end to war and an end to, other large-scale violent conflicts. So yeah, that doesn't mean no conflict at all, because sometimes there needs to be conflict to create change. But so much of what we see within war and other large-scale violent conflicts that's not doing anyone any good. And it all often comes down to a relatively few people's desire for power and so on. So if there's a way that we could change that and get past that as a society, as a world, I think that's the one thing I would go for. Because it creates so much senseless suffering, and good doesn't come from that. Now, how we would do that, I don't really know. I expect the only real way to do it would be, other than like taking control of everyone, which I don't think that's healthy either. Freedom is really important. But some kind of political change, I don't know what that change would look like, where we still allow freedom, but we somehow eliminate that kind of large-scale violent conflict. I don't know how we would achieve that, but at least without too much thought, that's what comes to mind. Do I watch television? And if so, what is my favorite program? I don't watch a lot of television. Well, I don't I don't watch broadcast television at all. Haven't done for many, many years, as I think it's quite common these days. I will sometimes watch something on streaming services like Netflix or whatever. Um, Not a lot though. In terms of the sort of things I watch, I'm more often watching things on like YouTube where people are talking about things and sharing information. That's the sort of thing I watch more. I will sometimes watch TV shows on streaming services from time to time, and the type of thing I guess that I often enjoy. I quite enjoy some of the like historical action series. I've watched a few of those over the last few years. You know, from time to time, some when I feel a need to unwind in a relatively passive way, I might watch one of those. And you know, I guess there's a balance. There's the action, there's the drama going on, and the storytelling, and often you are learning some little bits of history and things as well. Like there were a few in the last few years about Vikings, which I quite enjoyed. And quite interestingly, I've discovered that, so one of the most famous Vikings that featured in some of these series, his name was Ragnar Lothbrok. And I've actually discovered through, it was one of my nieces who figured it out through like family history and stuff, that somewhere and all the connection going back, that I'm actually related to Ragnar Lothbrok, as probably millions and millions and millions of people are. But it's like, you know, connection through to history. Yeah, I quite enjoy that sort of thing from time to time. Is there any Qigong or Kung Fu that I used to teach but don't now, and why? Yeah, there's quite a lot actually, for a variety of reasons. So I'll start with some of the more recent reasons and then go back to some of the older reasons why some of what I maybe used to teach I don't teach now. So one of the things that maybe quite a few of you might be aware of is that I'm still at the moment going through a process of restructuring the Long White Cloud Qigong syllabus. It's specifically what we teach in what order and what format and so on. Got through quite a lot of it at this point, which is great, but there's a lot of work involved, and it's not complete yet. And so because of that, there are some practices that I used to teach in the old Long White Cloud Qigong syllabus that I'm not currently teaching yet, because I haven't produced new materials for them in the new format within the new syllabus yet. I will eventually get to that and teach all of those practices again. It's probably going to take a while longer, because within the new syllabus and the new format, I'm also teaching practices that I didn't teach previously. So there's a lot within the syllabus, and there is more yet to come. But it does take time. There's a long process of development that goes into preparing each of the courses and the materials. The Kung Fu side of things. I don't teach a lot of Kung Fu at all right now. I do go in and help some of the teachers from time to time. And that's quite simply because I'm so busy, so engaged with the teaching of the Qigong. And it's not just that, it's also the nature of how I'm teaching online, teaching people all over the world, that a lot of the timing of that ends up being in the morning or in the evening where I am, as well as a fair amount during the day as well. But, you know, morning and evening, and of course those are the main times to teach Kung Fu classes, you know, in terms of in-person classes. And so it's difficult for me to do that as a regular ongoing thing. And then just my general busyness means I'm not doing it too much. I just very occasionally help out. So not teaching a lot of Kung Fu at all right now. At some point, I think I will teach more Kung Fu again, but my priority is on the Qigong right now. So that may be sometime in the future, but I still enjoy Kung Fu. There's a lot of great things to discover, learn, understand, and things to develop within yourself as part of doing Kung Fu. And yeah, I think at some point in the future, I'll probably swing back to teaching more of that. Going back to so that's the more recent reasons. And when I say recent, that's like over the last 7 years or so, maybe 8 years. But then going even further back than that, there are other practices that I used to teach that I don't anymore. And that is, it also ties into the development of my own teaching, my own understanding, and development of syllabus of what I teach. There were practices that I used to teach from my very early initial training and learning myself, both in terms of Qigong and Kung Fu. And then over time, as things developed, I did more research, and I developed more specifically things that I focused on within my teaching, my practice. And that's what I teach now, rather than some of those practices that I taught many years ago. Yeah. All right. What else do we have? I think we're almost to the end here. Okay. Oh no, that's not the one. Let's see. Okay. Yeah. Last question. Whew. So, a lot of athletes and top personal trainers are often asked, if you were only able to train with, say, 3 exercises for the rest of your life, what would they be? That's really hard because each exercise, each practice has different benefits, and it's useful to be able to draw from all of them for different purposes, for different reasons. And again, what do you mean by exercise? Are we talking Qigong exercise? Are we talking other exercises as well? If we're going into other exercises, not necessarily specifically Qigong, I might include things like walking or running or different body weight exercises, but I'll keep my answer just to Qigong. And again, it's hard to say because they all have their own value, their own role. But I will come up with 3 that I think, if I had to pick at this moment, what would I choose? So one would be the primal pulse. If you're not familiar with that, it's a very simple breathing practice where we start focusing on the expansion and contraction of the dantian. We then move out to the expansion and contraction of the physical body, and then to the expansion and contraction of the energy field around us, and then all of those together. Super, super simple. The physical method of doing it is really simple, but it has a profound effect just in getting everything moving. Expansion and contraction is one of our most primal movements of our body, of our energy, and it just gets everything moving, and that starts getting everything flowing. And so, yeah, super simple but powerful. Another one, so that's 1. 2, I think lift up, pour down. Super, super simple practice. Again, if I'm going to pick only 3, they're all going to be simple. And this one, I think I'll put a video to this one below. There's some videos on YouTube showing this one. So I'll put that in the description below if you want to check it out. Very, very simple. And with this one, we wash energy all the way up through the body, all the way down through the body. So again, it just gets the flow going all the way up, all the way down. That clears blockages, that brings fresh energy in, that helps us to connect to the energy of heaven and earth. And so just in terms of keeping our energy flowing and healthy and full of vital energy, really good. Super simple, but really good. And then for a third one, I think I'd go with Wuji Zhangzhuan. So Zhangzhuan being still standing practices where you're just not really moving. And the Wuji one is really the one you should start with. It's the most simple, and in many ways it encapsulates the most. Allowing the energy to return to natural, to neutral, allowing us to clear any blockages, any stuck patterns. Those are the 3 I'd choose. All right, so that is the end of the answers about my personal life. If you've made it this far, I guess you found it interesting. Yeah, I don't know if I'll do another one of these. I might at some point in the future. I'm certainly not going to do one soon, but who knows? At some point in the future, I might do another one. Hopefully, you found it interesting. Gives you a little bit more insight into me behind all these videos, behind the different practices. If you may have done some of the Qigong practices. All right, I look forward to seeing you on another vlog soon.